Hi there guys, welcome to the Guitar Hour. Sorry we had a little bit of a delay at the beginning. We're waiting for this laptop, which is a Windows laptop, I apologise, to boot up. And we use it for the chat, so that's why we were kind of waiting a little bit. Hope you're all well. Welcome as usual. Oh, I've got this going on. We're joined by an extra guest today. There's 4 of us, not just 3 of us. And Dan's been promoted from futon. What's the stool?
Stairs.
Stool with a hole in it. I'm not sure why. It's a pretty useful hole, to be honest.
Well, there's nobody here.
So welcome all. As usual, we've got Dave Bronze.
Hey.
Hi Dave. Dan Smith.
Hello.
And our guest is Joel Fellick. Joel was actually here because Joel and Dan and I were jamming earlier on. We were playing some standards, kind of screwing some standards up. And we thought what would be really interesting is Joel is actually a student at Leeds College of Music doing a jazz studies degree. Is that what they call it these days? Jazz studies?
Just jazz.
It's a jazz degree.
Performance.
Just performance. Just jazz.
Just jazz. Just jazz guitar.
So we thought it'd be quite interesting to hear from Joel in terms of his experiences of being a student of jazz. So we're going to do that today. We've got 3 or 4 topics, and as usual, we'll probably only get through 1 of them or 2 of them. So again, thanks for joining us. We're actually going to start today with an interesting topic that Mr. Bronze has been talking about a little bit. Dave does a blog on his website. Now, if they want to go and check the blog out, is your website davebronze.com?
Yeah, Dave.
You can type it in the chat.
I'll just put it on the chat.
Dave's blog, how often do you do them? Once a month?
About
every 2
once a month.
Once a month?
Yeah. Usually I do them like if there's something going on, if something jumps out at me. I'm not super regular with them.
Yeah, it's just if you've got something on your mind, basically.
Yeah.
And Dave did a really interesting blog recently about essentially being a musician, and this would actually apply to non-musicians as well, about having a control on or not having it in a way, fear. Or conquering, would you say conquering your fear? Or
Yeah, it's like, so the blog's called Sink or Swim, and in order to grow, you need to be in the deep end.
That's you need to throw yourself in at the deep end and see what happens.
Throw yourself in, yeah.
So I thought what we'd start with is basically I'm going to hand over to Dave, and Dave's going to sort of introduce the topic to you, and then we're going to have a discussion about it. Now the cool thing, if anybody has joined us for the first time today, because obviously I did a video on Facebook, and if you guys have not seen the stream before, you've probably noticed that Twitch has this chat function. And the chat will appear, if you're on a computer, the chat will appear on the right hand side of your stream. Now there's also a theatre mode that you might want to check out, which basically makes the video bigger and allows you to see the chat on the right hand side. Check that out. If you're on an iPad or a phone of some description and you're watching the stream, the chat will be underneath if you're in portrait mode. If you go to landscape mode, it'll go full screen. If you want to chat to us, ask us any questions, feel free. We will try and answer as many questions as we can, but it gets kind of difficult because we've obviously got topics to discuss, and if we get bombarded by questions, it's really difficult to kind of answer them all. But please do ask questions. And the really cool thing about this is you guys can chat amongst yourselves as well. You can ask us questions or chat with us, and you can have conversations with each other. And please use that chat function because it's a really useful part of this whole thing. So with that said, let's hand over to Dave, and Dave will sort of talk you through what he said on the blog, and then we'll have a bit of discussion about it. And you guys can join in.
Yeah, so basically I was thinking to myself, because I've got this tour coming up, and I'm playing really crazy progressive music, and I've got to memorise sort of 15-minute long songs. And about 8 weeks ago I started working on it, and sort of really thinking, man, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this.
Very daunting, yeah.
It's too hard, the music's too difficult. And I just got thinking about kind of like my career, because I've only been at this really 2 years doing it full-time professional, and so in the last 2 years I've gone from I've sort of given up my job, doing the full thing, put an album out, crowdfunded it, done a mini European tour, and now about to do this tour with Dave Bainbridge, and sort of thinking, why have I waited till the back end of my 30s to do this? And it's just, I started thinking, because basically I was afraid. And so the blog just talks about irrational fears. So, for example, most people are afraid of spiders and sharks, right? But
Both.
Both, yeah. Not many sharks.
Spider sharks.
But actually, there's hardly any. There's about 5 shark attacks a year.
Yeah, yeah.
The last spider death was in 1982, I think. So, you know.
Still not long enough.
And I just started thinking, why did I put it off so long? Basically, it was fear. When I did, I was afraid to go to music college because I thought I wouldn't be good enough.
Now just to remind me, you did go to music college in the end, or did you not?
So
Yes, you did, didn't you?
Well, I went to the Guitar Institute
Yeah.
and did the 1 year, but I was going to go to Leeds College of Music, but I really
Right.
thought I wouldn't be good enough.
Joel can't stand it anyway. No, I'm joking.
Well, Joel will tell you about it later. But and so that was like a whole decade of fear of failing. If someone came and said, "You want a gig, or do you want to do this?" I'd just be like, "Oof, I think it'd be too hard." And in the end, I just sort of taken the plunge. And my thinking around it's a bit like for me, it's been a bit like the diving board. You know, like when there's a kid and you see him, he's at the edge of the diving board and he thinks, "Oh man, it's too scary," and you're faced with a choice, right? And the choice is you either get back down or you jump off. And then when you jump off, you see the kid survives, and then what's he do? The next thing,
Straight
he
back
goes
up
to the
higher.
higher board. So it's just my thoughts around that really, and in life, like for me, there's been situations more recently where I've been really scared, but the difference has been, you know, I've taken the jump and sort of been a bit braver. But I guess it's something I've learned. It's like a
Yeah.
practiced behaviour.
I mean, everyone will be able to relate to this if you've ever been as a kid to a theme park when you see a really kind of like one of these big roller coasters that's kind of renowned as being really scary. And most people, myself included, will kind of be apprehensive before you get on. Same with the diving board. Although I've never jumped off a diving board, I think I'd be too scared now. But you go out on the roller coaster quite apprehensive. You come off, and the first thing you do when you come off is, "I want to go on again. I want to go on again. That was amazing." And all of your fear is dissipated because I find with this, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel it's a lack of control scenario. So it's that thing of, and this is talked about in all sorts of things, not just music. It's talked about in all sorts of business things and all sorts of
Too many variables.
too many variables and too many variables that I can't keep track of. So it's what it is really is it's your imagination running wild as to what might go wrong and what could
Right.
happen. And of course, in your mind, you can create all kinds of scenarios that might occur that would be way worse than anything that would happen in real life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of examples for me. There's been loads of examples for me back from like when I was doing what Joel's doing now. Because I was learning, I'm still learning the instrument massively, obviously, but because I was learning in a deeper way, so I didn't have the musical skills that were required to do, say, certain ensembles. I wasn't the guy that would say, "I'll do it." And I used to get annoyed by the guy that would say they'd do it because I thought, why am I not that guy?
No, I've experienced that over like the 2 years.
So you find the same thing?
Yeah, there's some guys that like no matter what is, for example, masterclasses. You've got like some really heavy players sat in front of you, like Eric Harland and Ben Monder, and people like that, and they're like, right, who wants to get up and play? And there's always like the same few guys that'll just go, me. And
Yeah,
it's like,
the thing is, what's interesting about that is I don't know if you guys have ever been in that scenario where you've been at a masterclass with somebody, one of your heroes, and they say, somebody wants to come up, get up and play, and the first thing that goes through your mind is, no, I'm going to make a fool of myself, A, in front of the person that I hero worship, and B, in front of the rest of this audience. But the person who gets the most out of the masterclass is the guy that goes up and plays.
Yeah.
Not necessarily so they can write on their musician's CV, "Oh, I've played with Mike Stern" or whatever. That's not the point. And that actually really annoys me when people do that. But so because you had a more kind of internal and memorable connection with what was going on that day, and it's actually a really hard skill to develop, to be the guy that goes, "I'll do it." But I don't know if you found this. There is a part of your brain that you can switch off that just allows you to suddenly go, "I'll do it," and then deal with the consequences afterwards.
Yeah, so for me, it's taken practice. One of the things for me in learning, so the guy I'm playing for on tour is Dave Bainbridge, the guy I've been listening to since the early 90s, who I've sort of idolised, and I'm learning his tunes. So that's been kind of weird. But for me, the things that you imagine are never sort of as bad as what happens. So I've grown massively just by starting to say yes. Things have been really happening. And the other thing that I've noticed is it's like everyone else's aspirations around you get raised. So once you start thinking a bit bigger, and it sounds cheesy, but like with the crowdfunding was the thing where when I worked out the target and thought, wow, we're going to have to really go for this, I had massive doubts. I was really scared that I was going to look like an idiot. But it's almost like everyone will thought, wow, this guy's going for it, let's get behind him. And I think I've been learning more to have the attitude of, what's the worst that can happen, like Dr Pepper's.
But there's also, we've talked about this quite a few times on the Guitar Hour, this thing of if you jump in at the deep end and something is kind of very difficult for you and you have to deal with it. Let's say I don't know, I'm trying to think. So you've never done a big band gig before, and somebody offers you a big band gig, and you think your brain is going, no, there's no way I can do that. It's going to be impossible. I can't read charts well enough, and whatever your objections to doing a big band gig are. Say it's in 2 weeks' time. There's obviously a sensible element to it. So if it's the next day, that's probably a bad idea, because there's a level of preparation. What's the phrase? To prepare to something is to
Fail to prepare.
To fail to prepare is
preparing to fail.
Preparing to fail.
Wow.
Thank you. That phrase. Blimey. That phrase is very applicable in certain cases, because if you agree to do something and there's only a day to go or 2 days to go and your skill set's nowhere near, then that's obviously bad news. But if you have time to prepare and you prepare well and you allow yourself to do that scenario, no matter how nervous or difficult it is, everything else seems easier after that.
Yeah, right. So I mean, part of that is what I've realised, is that thinking I wouldn't be able to do this gig, and I've sort of surprised myself really, because now that I've said yes, I kind of have to.
I've done it as well.
And when you have to, you find a way and you put the extra hours in.
It was like me doing the. Sorry, go on then.
Well, so I agreed to do that gig covering the trombone, and I had to learn how to read bass clef in
This
the
is so
space of
funny.
like 2 weeks.
Covering a trombone on bass, brilliant. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. You have to learn to read bass.
You look at the charts, and because the music it's like I've touched about this, right? It's like a kid's book thing. So the music is like, some of it is supposed to be sort of quite space age. So there's a lot of whole tone stuff, a lot of
Hard to
chromatism.
read.
So you look at the charts, and it's just accidentals for days, and you're thinking, but it's actually, once you've kind of read through it a couple of times, it's easier to remember, because you see a big thing, you just go, that's just going from D to D chromatically, and it looks horrific on the page, but then you go, all right, then that's done, and then you slowly you're half reading it and not really reading it, but it's just that slow process of like, I definitely know what that note is, that's definitely an F, and then you might get one that's a ledger line, and you're like, all right, what's that, and then you slowly start adding more notes in. I guess it's the same with any reading gig.
So how do you feel you've grown then from doing it, like in terms of that jumping in the deep end thing?
But just I wouldn't have played. Well, I haven't played bass for like 6 or 7 years before that, and the technique thing's not. I mean, if there's a real bass player around, he'd be like, nah, you shit, mate.
But again, like.
But I mean, you've seen me like dabble a bit. Like the technique's not that bad.
But again, here's the interesting thing with that. So your sort of statement there was, there might be a bass player kicking around. Well, that again is the kind of thing that in your mind you would generate to be far bigger problem than it actually is, because the likelihood is there probably won't be a bass player around, and if there is,
and they're not going to put
they're
a
not
big
gonna
flag
know.
that says fraud.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to comment on it. As long as you have prepared to the point that you need to prepare in
As long
order
as
to be
you
able
can
to
do the gig, yeah.
Precisely.
Like nobody knows. Like if you go on stage and you have prepared really well, what people see at that performance is like, as far as they're concerned, you are the shit. You know what I mean?
Music is definitely something where I think we can put too much pressure on ourselves to be perfect and exacting every single time, and it just doesn't work that way. And part of the problem is if you're, and I'm really guilty of this, and I'll explain why in a second. But if you are always wanting to achieve the highest thing you can possibly achieve, then you'll say no to everything, because you'll always be worried that you're not going to achieve it. Like me with my album. I'll be honest, and don't get me wrong, my album is very much moving forwards now, but there's you probably felt the same thing as well, especially doing a crowdfunding thing where people have pre-ordered the album.
Yeah.
You're thinking, man, this has to be really good.
Yeah.
This has to fulfill the expectations of, and you know how many people have pre-ordered the album, and some of those people you know as well, and you probably had a few fairly well-known guitar players order your album as well.
Yeah, Mr. Fastfinger.
Mr. Fastfinger. So, and you're thinking, man, these guys are gonna. You could go down the rabbit hole there and go, man, what if he thinks this? What if this ruins my career? What if the album's no good and it gets terrible reviews and nobody wants to listen to anything I do anymore ever again? What if I don't get to do any of the tours? What if nobody turns up to the tours that we do? Ad infinitum, worrying
You
about
run out
stuff.
of money before you finish it, or
Yeah, exactly. Just stupid amounts of worrying.
I think somebody gave me a good bit of advice, and they said, like in the situation where you're getting up for a jam. So for me, it'd be like if I had to jam with Steve Vai or something like that, or and the thought process is, what you need to think is this: you could go up, you could suck, and everyone will remember your name for a day and then forget who you are. Or you could go up and
Absolutely.
be absolutely amazing, and everyone will remember your name for a day and then forget who you are.
The outcome is the same.
So the point is, you might as well get up and go for it. And what will probably happen is, who cares if someone remembers your name? You will have grown, and you'll have more confidence. And the other thing that reminds me of, there's so many armchair experts, right?
Oh, this is going to link very nicely into another topic
So
as well.
many armchair experts who will criticise people who have a go. At the end of the day, it's like I was saying earlier, you know, you've got to be in the game. And by jumping off the deep end, you're in the game, you're doing it, and you're learning.
Well,
To add
the
some
thing
to
is-
saying yes to stuff while thinking you're not good enough. I very, very nearly cancelled the audition thing for the cruise ship.
Oh yeah.
Because the way it works, because it's the agent I used was based in Canada. You have to set up a camera, and then sort of have the means to play backing tracks and stuff, and they will call you up at say 4 o'clock, but your audition's at 5, so they call you up at 4, give you access to the charts and stuff, and the tracks, and then you have to print them off, get set up, and then they'll call you back at 5, and then it's, you know, you say your name to the camera, but they're on the phone at the same time, so they know it's obviously like being recorded live, and then you send them the tape. But they sent these charts thing. I'm just kind of like looking at it and just thinking, don't know if I'm the right guy for this. You know what I mean? I was like
Self-doubt creeping in
so
again.
close to phoning up and saying, you know, look, I've kind of made a bit of an error here, so I have to waste your time. And then, but you know, if I hadn't have done that, that's like 3 years worth of career experience playing and all that kind of stuff that would have just not been there.
And the other thing is, this is the same with the masterclass thing, where somebody gets up. Everyone else, all the armchair experts, the guys sat there kind of criticising. Well, all they're doing is wishing that it was them that had got, and regretting that they didn't after they'd left. After they'd left the masterclass.
From a different point of view, I think I've grown to like the failure. No, seriously, like for example, I noticed this when I got up at a jam session. In fact, last summer, a year ago, so I just finished my first year at college. So I got up and they go, "Let's play Rhythm Changes." And I'm thinking, what's this? I don't know what that is. So anyway, I get my phone out and attempt to read this thing going past at 90 mile an hour. I can't keep up for the life of me. But I knew what a rhythm change was before that, but I'd not bothered to learn it.
For anybody who doesn't know what the rhythm changes is, a rhythm changes is a classic jazz chord setup, basically, usually played in the key of B flat, which is usually played insanely fast. It's very difficult to sound good over.
Exactly,
It
yeah.
requires a huge amount of vocabulary,
But-
usually bebop vocabulary as well.
So that like massive failure for me made me wake up in the next 2 weeks go, I'm going to learn that.
That's a good point.
And if you look at failure in the sense that I've got on the gig, I shouldn't have accepted it.
Point.
Next time I get this gig, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah,
so
so
now I
fa-
put myself in those positions for that motivation.
That's interesting, because some people will find that, like, you managed to turn that around, even though that was probably a little bit embarrassing.
Oh, very, yeah.
It is embarrassing, isn't it? I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, we've all, say, not even a jam session, horrible gigs, basically. To turn that round and go, okay, now I know, essentially what you do is you know what you need to work on, which is a good thing. Likewise, though, sometimes, I mean, that's a superb point, and that's a good way of dealing with it as well, but sometimes you have a scenario where you do really well at something that you didn't think you were going to do really well at.
Yeah, it's like a win situation again.
Yeah, exactly. So that really motivates you, and then again, the next time you have to do something that's that stressful again, you're not worried about it. And that's a really good learning process. So yeah, I mean, essentially what we're saying is, and we've said this on the Guitar Hour before, but not when Dave's been here, and you should read Dave's blog, is be yes men, or women, whichever. We're not sexist on the Guitar Hour. Be yes people. Because within reason and utilising your knowledge of where you're at with your musical skills, so don't say yes to a jazz gig if you can only play 3 chords, but if the jazz gig is 6 months away, say yes, you know.
I think especially earlier on in your career, I think as you get on, you've got to be a bit more selective.
You do, that's very true.
But I guess, you know, I wish I'd had listened to my own advice on that earlier on in my 20s, when I just come out of the Guitar Institute and just done everything.
I think unfortunately as well, there's a level of maturity involved with that doesn't necessarily kick in when you're 20 odd, you know.
I was pretty stupid in my 20s.
I was very, like, I don't know about you guys, but spent a huge amount of my musical life terrified of everything. You know, because with the style of music that, you know, that we all play slightly different things, but we all play music that's either heavily arranged or heavily improvised. Where in both cases an element of perfection is required on the part of yourself you feel there's an element of perfection. I spent a huge amount of my career even before I was kind of playing for a living, being terrified by every musical situation because I thought I was going to fail.
Yeah.
I certainly don't have that anymore. I think you learn to deal with any failures and also learn to. We've talked about this before as well from a technical perspective. Someone asked a question a couple of guitar hours ago, 3 guitar hours ago, about how do you develop your technique to the level so that, or your musicianship to the level so that it doesn't fail on a gig.
Yeah.
And it's again an experience thing and a maturity thing, and also practicing in the right way. I mean, like for instance, you are practicing extremely diligently and intelligently to get this stuff together.
Yeah, for the tour. Yeah.
You're not hoping for the best and kind of playing it every day, but not really. Like just running through each thing once with your mind on something else with Netflix on would be a terrible idea. So again, it's the failure to prepare is preparing to fail kind of thing. There's an element of kind of intellectual process involved with it where you have to map out what you're going to do and how you're going to achieve the goal, and that's a whole different thing, goal setting, and that's something I'm not necessarily that good at, but setting goals and learning how to achieve those goals and learning new skills. But essentially it's just being intelligent and planning out and figuring out, okay, I need to get to this point, this is how I'm going to do it.
I think as well, the other thing I found is before I was sort of involved in music kind of professionally, you have an assumption that every gig everybody does is perfect.
Yeah.
And you know that standard is super high, and then when you get up in there you realise that there's no such thing as the perfect gig. And that comes back to that thing again about being in the game. It's like when you're in the game, you know the way it is, and so I don't find myself anymore like slagging off other guitar players saying, oh, didn't they have a bad gig, isn't that album terrible, isn't that, because you think, man, I've been criticised like that, and sometimes you have a bad gig.
And you don't know the full story. Like I did a gig at a festival the other week, and because there's so many acts on, it's like a 15-minute changeover. You don't really get time to sound check. It's just, is everything working? Yeah, alright, go. And obviously, I've mentioned this before, but I don't use a cab on stage, I just have a head that goes in. So what I hear is not controlled by me, it's like the sound guy, really.
Absolutely.
And it's, you know, if you know, from the outside, I mean, it went fine in the end, but people could be sort of outside going, hell, he's doing, you know, that bend wasn't in tune or whatever, and it's like, well, come and stand here, bend.
Oh.
Like, you know, come and stand here and then, you know, play me your best shit without your, you know, all the gear you have at home in the comfort of your own sort of bedroom. You know what I mean? That's a completely different.
It makes me think of that thing we talked about earlier about internet etiquette.
Yeah, me too. I was just going to say.
Because, you know, like, only a couple of years ago, I think I was on a guitar thing and I was having a go at a particular jazz guitar player I'm not really keen on. And and somebody called me on it and said, you know, what are you being such an idiot? Why do you have to say it like that? And it's like, well, I'm entitled to my own opinion. And then
the dark days of the Bronze.
Yeah, back and it's funny
Bronze
now
Age.
that I've the Bronze Age.
Oh, genius!
But now that I'm on the other side and started getting people slagging me off and stuff, you suddenly think, well, you know, it's like you get past that stage where you kind of like when you're in like with other people and you realise the stuff you get slagged off.
You have to be like this will like we'll segue into the internet etiquette thing, which is going to be an interesting topic. But I can give you a direct example that I can think of where what you were talking about, you have to be really careful why and when you criticise people without knowing the circumstances. So for instance, an example I can think of is if you look at all the Guitar Idol videos. You know the Guitar Idol competition that was run by Lick Library with various partners. I think they did the 2008 one was the one I was in. They did 2009, 2011, and 2014 last year. If you watch those videos, there's an interesting sort of what's the word? So a constant throughout all of those Guitar Idol competitions in that. With the best will in the world, it was always decided there would be plenty of time to sound check, plenty of time to set up the band, plenty of time in between each song to actually move the gear around. Everyone could plug into their own pedal boards, so on and so forth. All the backing tracks would work. if you were playing with backing tracks. If you're playing with the band would know your tunes. Everything would flow smoothly. Of course, in the real world, that doesn't happen ever. So every single Guitar Idol I've ever been to, and I've been to them all, so there's 4 of them, and I took part in one, there was never a sound check that I remember. There was always scenarios where the backing tracks weren't loud enough, they didn't work, or just weren't played. There were always, if the backing track was played, it was either too loud or too quiet. Or in many cases, not in all, but in many cases, the band either screwed up the tune or the guy screwed up the tune. And the band, by the way, were fantastic. I'm not slagging off the band at all. They were excellent in every single case. It's just that imagine trying to learn all of those tunes in a short period of time, and they're really complex tunes in most cases. And then what happens is, on all of those YouTube videos, somebody, and this is linking into our internet etiquette thing, somebody always comments on there, or multiple people saying, man, this guy sounds like crap, this guy can't play, this guy's this guy's that, I can play better than this guy. Yeah, terrible tone. Now, bear in mind that terrible tone comment as one example. You turn up, you plug into a Marshall, which God knows how it's set up, you've got no time to tweak any of the knobs or anything. Someone shoves a mic in front of it, you have no control what the mic is, what preamp it's running through, where it is on the speaker. You have no control over any of the monitoring in front of you because you haven't got time to do a sound check and say, I need to be louder. Everybody wants different sounds. You've got your pedal board plugged in the front. You don't know how to use the amp. And then somebody has the audacity to say, man, this guy, great tune, horrible tone. As if it's your fault, as if you didn't set it up properly. Now, that's fine if you go to a gig and there's been multiple sound, well, not multiple, but a sound check, the guy's using his own gear, so on and so forth, and then you go, that guy's got terrible tone. That's an opinion you're entitled to have, and you should tell people if you feel that way. But if you know nothing about the circumstances of the gig or what's going on, it's a bit much to be saying, this guy's got terrible tone. This guy sounds really bad, this guy should have practiced more, this guy's tune sucks. You don't know why the tune sucks, you don't know whether the backing track works, so on and so forth. And this is part of this whole internet etiquette thing that we're going to start talking about. I think it's really important to be very considered in where you criticise people if you're a musician, because we all seek perfection, but it doesn't often get achieved.
And you never know if your career starts taking off, you might meet a lot of these people because it's quite a small world, isn't the guitar community?
It's very small, very small.
You know, like you more than likely will bump into some of the players you slagging off.
You go to like a trade show or something, and like
everyone's there, you know.
Yeah.
You introduce yourself, and it's like, oh, you motherfucker, you know what I mean? Like, you're that guy, you know.
Round the throat.
It's worth mentioning that not every gig you got there is horrible. It makes it sound like it's like you know, really hard done by.
And likewise, you know, you if people criticise you, you should absolutely be able to take that criticism on the chin, provided, well, no, actually, not provided it's valid. You should be confident enough as a musician in yourself to not worry too much about what other people are saying.
Because some of this stuff that I got slagged off for at various points, you know, the ones that hurt the most is the ones that have a bit of truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, oh, you know. And some of the people who've trolled me, I've actually gone back and thought, actually, do you know what? He hasn't said it to be kind, but I'm going to work on that. But then other people, it's just so outrageous what they're saying, you just kind of go, right, you really don't get what's going on here.
And that's a skill unto itself. Some people will have one guy troll them on YouTube and it's the end of their world. I mean, that's just also a crazy position to be in. You should be more confident. But I think the internet is can be a deep pit of despair for some people, because as soon as people start, this is actually not the topic we were intending to talk about with internet etiquette, but we'll get onto that. But it segues in rather nicely. Just this whole thing of, man, I mean, people need to chill out in terms of you know, instantly feeling the need to criticise something they don't know all the information on.
Yeah,
it's just not important. It doesn't make any sense in my mind.
I definitely see that there's kind of a tipping point where people get to a certain point in their careers where they've got the experience and you don't find them saying that kind of stuff anymore. Yeah,
so my classic example of this is if you take a gentleman like Andy Timmons.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw Andy Timmons write anything negative about anybody?
When was the last time you saw him not smiling at the trade shows?
Absolutely.
Like,
and you could take that statement and you could apply it to any well-known guitar player.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Joe Bonamassa, any of these guys, whoever your guitar squeezes, you could apply that to those guys, and that whole thing of criticising, I don't have a problem with criticising people if it's, and again, I think you should be able to take criticism.
Depends what it is, and it depends who it's off. Because I've had the past few days or the past week or so, I probably might have looked like I can't take criticism, but I get if it's somebody that's like really doesn't know what they're on about, and they just start spitting bile at you about something, it's like, well, fuck you, man, you don't know what you're talking about. But if it's like a mate that goes, oh, that was cool,
yes,
I think you should do this, or I don't think that bit of your tune works, or that could be a bit stronger, that's different.
Yeah, so if you're jamming with somebody who you know really well, and they, you jam with them a few times, and they turn around to you and go, I think it might be a good idea for you to work on your time feel a little bit. Fine, absolutely. But if you put a YouTube video up if somebody else puts a YouTube video of you up, that's an even more prevalent scenario. And you had very little, let's say you're playing at a trade show, and you'd plugged into a random amplifier, and you had no control over the tone, you had no control over who you were playing, you were just jamming with somebody. And then people start saying, man, this guy's tone sucks, this guy can't play in time, da-da-da-da. Okay, now that's when things are getting a little bit out of hand.
Because, with people who criticise, because I've mentioned sometimes I take the little grain of truth and work on it, and then other times I disregard it, but sometimes it chuffing does my head in,
I deal with it,
don't.
I just ignore it, because
listen.
let's say for instance, again, I do a video, put it on Facebook or YouTube, and somebody says, oh, good username, Master Legato, well done, good username, thank you for joining the stream. If I put a video up and somebody criticises, or comments even, on my, let's use time feel as an example, for them to comment on my time feel assumes that they think I don't know that I have that issue in the first place. Now, having studied guitar and studied music for the past 17 years, I don't need somebody to tell me where my flaws are.
Right.
I know better than they do where my flaws are. I know better than anybody where my flaws are. I'm hyper aware of them. Now, it doesn't mean I have a problem with them saying it, but it doesn't affect me in the slightest, because if somebody says something really hurtful, then I know that they're just saying something to be hurtful, and it's just, you can just ignore it. And that very rarely happens, to be honest. But if somebody says something criticising a specific element of my playing, 9 times out of 10, or I'd say 10 times out of 10, I'm already fully aware of it, and I know a way of working on it. I just haven't got round to it yet, or it's something I'm not that bothered about. It just doesn't worry me in the slightest. Where it might start to worry me, not somebody else's criticism, but if I was constantly screwing up on gigs, or was constantly putting terrible videos out, I might have to question and criticise myself for that. But somebody else criticising me for it is kind of irrelevant, because I'm already totally aware of all of those issues. I don't know if that's how you find it, but that's certainly how I find it.
I think some of the stuff that I've been criticised for has been a real surprise, and things that,
right,
where I've gone, wow, where's that kind of coming through from?
Can you give an example, or would you prefer not to? You don't have to, but...
Welcome
to the stream, Jason.
Like, one thing that I'm aware of, that sometimes I overbend, so I'm kind of quite, and I work on that. But what some guys saying, wow, your vibrato's really out of time. I was like, wow, what a weird kind of criticism. And then I listened in and thought, oh, actually, I'm doing the vibrato in crotchet triplets.
Right.
But
nice.
But it's just like, you're just like, well, what a, or
That's an
like
interesting
the thing
one,
on the stream.
Very micro thing to criticise someone on. It's like,
oh man, I get this stuff where I've had people go on the video and dissect it and say, you saw that this here was wrong, blah blah blah, and they give you all the times.
I like that thing you did at 1 minute 13 on that third track. But 1 minute 15, bullshit.
Why would you feel the need to point out that someone's vibrato was out? What are you achieving by telling them that their vibrato's out of time? If you were sat right in front of them and you were playing and you said, so can you hear anything that might need improvement? Why would you email or send a text or put a message on Facebook to a guy you've never met before, who you know very little about, who's put their music out there, and go, I've got to be honest, your vibrato's a little bit out of time? Why would you do that? That wouldn't even cross my mind.
I don't know.
Would you do that? Now I'm going to make you look evil if you say yes. I've set you up
do
big
know,
time.
It's funny. There's a mate of mine, and he sent me a thing and said, "Listen to this," and I said, "Oh, I think." So I can't remember. Like, the legato wasn't smooth or whatever.
Yeah, you've told me things about production before that or my tracks that were, but I asked you to.
Yeah, but and then. Maybe he didn't ask me actually. Maybe I told him, and then I felt like a complete idiot. And then I went back and listened to the track, and I had to apologise to him because I was like, I just got it wrong. So I don't know. It's kind of like, but that's the thing. Like, I'm learning as well. Like this internet etiquette thing is like, you know, we're all learning, aren't we? I guess.
Yeah. So go on, Dan.
Well, I was listening to a podcast on the way here, as I often do. And it was.
Was it a comedian podcast?
It wasn't actually this time. You know, it was
You're
a comedian.
diversifying.
This one was called. It's called Distraction Pieces. It's by this. It's actually done by this sort of spoken word like hip hop guy called Scroobius Pip.
Oh, you told me about it. Yeah.
But he was talking to Simon Pegg, and they were talking about sort of internet and things like that. And
The internet of many things.
Yeah, and many things. Simon Pegg said the best thing the internet ever did was give everyone a voice. But the worst thing the internet ever did was give everybody a voice, because people just abuse it, and it's kind of like you can kind of do whatever you want on the internet in a positive way to promote yourself, or you don't need you can do a lot with very little amount of money in terms of like gear and stuff if you want to try and make a short movie or whatever. But then at the same time, things like Twitter has completely removed. I think I said this to you. Like if I wanted to, I'm not, but if I wanted to, I could, in the space of 10 minutes, tweet Arnold Schwarzenegger and telling me shit, which before the internet I would never be able to have done that. And it's kind of it's good that you can connect with people and be like, oh,
yeah,
man, I like
that's
stuff.
why I'm doing this about it. Yeah, because that is a good thing.
To
in
be
a way,
able to just turn up and to have the power to just go, yeah, fuck you, mate, as this faceless being behind a phone or a tablet or a computer screen.
There's no consequence either. It's not really.
No, nothing. You can do fake name. You can be whatever you want. It's, you know what I mean? It doesn't. And what
it's
you
really
get
interesting because I'm
mob
really
mentality.
I'm really torn on it because I like the idea. I love the idea that you can be in contact with anybody now, and all of our heroes we can be in contact with to some degree anyway. Steve Vai's not on Facebook, but someone like Andy Timmons again is.
Yeah.
Andy Timmons comments on my videos, and I can have a chat with Andy Timmons or Greg Howe, for instance. And that's an amazing thing. The problem is, and this is where it does come into the internet etiquette thing, is when that is used in the wrong way. So for instance, now we've talked about this before, all of us have had this. Joel, you've had this as well. People adding you on Facebook or sending you a friend request with a message that says it can say one of two things. It just goes, hello, and you're like, oh, now then. If I reply to this and I say hello back, what am I getting myself into? And hello is suspicious usually if you don't know the person. Usually, that's one of the ones. Or somebody says hi. No, they don't even say hi. They just send you a message with a video of themselves in. Check this out. So you receive a message from somebody you don't know. They've never spoken to you before, and it just says check this out, or check my video out, or check my licks out, or can you share this please?
Do you know what?
Not into it. Sorry guys, that might be a little bit controversial, but I'm not into that as a method of marketing yourself.
Do you know what? It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. That's a very good point.
It doesn't work. So don't do it. Do you know what works? Like getting to know somebody,
building relationships
genuinely,
with people.
and it takes a long time, and investing in putting the other person first. Like that's what works. And if someone gets to know me and is really kind to me, and then sends me a video after a while, I'm much more likely to watch it and just hey, hi, friend request. Oh, can you like my page? Is the second thing. I'm just like, well, I don't even know you.
Well, again, if you look at any of the guys that we all love, so I'm thinking of guys who've done really well online. So guys like, I'll just pick names at random. So Marcus Foley, Rick Graham, Martin Miller. Help me out, guys. Who else can we think of? Nick. Oh God, I've got utter brain failure. And this is terrible because I love his playing. Is it Nick Robinson? No, what's
Nick Johnston?
Thank you.
Nick Johnston.
Sorry, Nick. If you happen to see this, Johnston. I absolutely am appalled at myself for forgetting that. It's just I didn't forget who your name was. I just had brain failure. So Nick Johnston.
Justin Guitar.
Justin Sandico. All of these guys who've done really well for themselves online. None of those guys, thank you, Nick Johnston in the chat, thank you, Bisa, mate. I've just got utter brain failure, it happens sometimes as I get older. None of these guys have ever sent a message, I guarantee to you, to somebody saying that they've never met before or don't know online, saying, check out my video.
It's cold calling. They might as well be selling
Cold
double
calling.
blazing.
It's cold calling. Absolutely.
Well, twice this week, I told you this off stream, but twice this week, the same guy, I'm not going to mention his name, I can't even remember it anyway, but he's tagged me in a post, and it'll be a video for YouTube, and it's me plus 45 other guys, just with a video, other people.
Yes, all the time, yeah.
Yeah, and then it just says, whatever the video is, it's playing something, and it'll say, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I've got timeline review, just, as you have, which is, you have to.
Being at music college, it's actually worrying at how many people from the college, who I don't particularly know, will just inbox me and be like, hey dude, here's my new project. And the thing is, it's not personal to me.
No.
Maybe if it was, like, hey man, how's it going? Body, do you know what I mean? It's like this
It's the
copy
same
and pasted
all.
message. And like, I know who these people are in college, but still, it's like, you've never ever came up to me and spoke to me. You don't care
at least
about.
in a way, it's not good, but at least they feature in your life in some respect, in that they're
Yeah.
But I totally get
Obviously,
it.
but it's like,
It's not a good
and
thing.
the amount of people you get that from, it's quite worrying that people are now referring to that as a main source of like,
It's just...
check this my new track out. And it's like,
It's just.
It applies to real life as well. It's like if you're at a trade show, for example, the one thing you don't want to do is, hey, I'm Dave Bronze, also here's my card. It's like the stuff where I've had endorsement things come through has been literally, I've met the guy, I've been friendly,
Absolutely.
chatted to him, shown great interest in what he's selling or he's making, somehow hooked up with him later over Facebook, and it's just been a totally normal, natural
Exactly
thing.
the same with me.
Where I haven't gone to the trade show and thought, right, let's see how many things I can get. I've just gone to the trade show.
guitars I can get.
Yeah, and it's the same when you go to gigs.
What's your artist development program?
Yeah, it's like you just go and you want to chat to these guys, don't you? And get
One guy that will tell you a lot about this is Jason. Like the amount
Jason
of
from
emails and
OnePlay,
stuff and random.
Welcome to the stream, 10 million stubs. You guys have got amazing usernames.
Yeah, Jason gets his kind of stuff. I remember the guy from is it Proton Pedals?
Yeah.
Put a video up once about something about like an endorsement deal, and
It's
he was
funny.
really, really angry
Yeah.
because he said he gets this. He was very calm at the beginning. He was like, I get this email. I was going to talk about this email that I get, and I get it every day, at least 100 times a day, and it's just people just asking for endorsement deals or free pedals or whatever. And it's like, even if he was sort of looking for that kind of thing, not even a hello. It's just like straight in with that. Like, what evidence do you have that do a demo or something, or have you got anything you can even show me without just trying to get free shit?
The thing is, if you're producing good stuff and people like it, and
They'll
you post a
contact
video up on Facebook, people will share it. You'll get more views. The process has to be organic. It cannot be this forced thing of, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Don't look anywhere else. Just look straight at me. Here's my videos. Look at, it's too much. And when was the last time that anybody sent you one of those things, either via tagging you in it, amongst 150 other people, or sending you a private message, that you actually watched the video, even if it was amazing? When was the last time you watched one?
I don't think I've ever watched one.
It's
of
got to
them,
be,
honest.
yeah, absolutely.
I've
Maybe
very rarely
2008.
been
was the last time I watched one.
I watched once and regretted it.
Bad life decision.
The other thing is somebody contacted me today actually, a guy I taught or mentored a little bit on guitar, and he was just saying, look, what's your top tips for growing a fan base? We try to think of promote, and I said, you know what, just be a good guy and focus on like a small number of people, say 50 to 100 people. Really invest in those people and they'll share your stuff. You don't have to go and bang it on every
It's
forum.
time as well, isn't it? You can't just go, right, I'm going to become this, I'm going to grow this thing like that. It's like, just keep doing it.
Yeah,
The people that haven't got the discipline or the dedication will stop doing it. You'll kind of rise to the top a little bit.
Nobody is like, these days there's so many guitar players doing the same thing online, but if your content is good and you care about your content, you take time over it, your production values are high, and like we've talked about in the guitar before, you learn skill sets that help you to do good videos, have good audio, produce good stuff, and you've got something that people will be interested in. if you keep producing content, it's going to break through in the end, and people will see it. You don't need to force it on people. It's just an ugly thing, and that's what we mean by internet etiquette in terms of how you, whether you forcefully cold call, in effect, it's like the internet version of cold calling. Like phoning somebody up and trying to sell something that was unrequested. The phone,
insurance,
PPI, you know, whatever.
Windows.
Yeah, it's effectively you are a cold calling salesman for your own guitar playing, and that's not what you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm not even saying it because it annoys me. I'm saying it, don't do it because it doesn't work.
It's just good
Like,
advice, yeah.
And it's just
a bad
rude
idea.
as well. It's like it's so impersonal. It's like all these 50 people.
I mean, you're
like
right.
my shit.
It doesn't annoy me anymore. It used to annoy me. It doesn't annoy me anymore. I just kind of ignore them now. I don't even open the message unless it's somebody. Unless somebody starts a like hello. Like, that's another thing. Don't just if you want to speak to somebody, don't just start with hello. Just say what you want to say and send the message, because otherwise, hello on its own seems suspicious. It's like you want something. You're not prepared to tell me what you want to know or why you want to speak. And I'm not just talking about me now. Anybody. Again, internet etiquette. I receive all sorts of messages where people just write hi or hello, and it's like, I don't really want to reply to you, because if you had something to say that I could engage on you with, you'd have said it first. That's how I feel about it.
It
Anyway.
freaks me out when people do it, actually.
Yeah.
Evidently, they want something.
Yeah. Well,
You don't know what
sometimes
they
not.
want.
I mean,
No, sometimes, yeah.
since I put the album out, I get a lot of people who want to talk to me. And the thing with Facebook, I don't know how to sort this out, but it happens like middle of the night sometimes. People say, hello, I'm doing this right now. I'm just like, I'm trying to sleep, you know.
Of course, and some people will have the best will in the world with it, but it's just a more sensible thing to actually just, like, if I want to have a conversation with somebody online, I don't just write hello. I'll write the full. It's like writing an email. Would you write an email to somebody and just put hello?
No, that's
I'll
not.
tell you
Would
what,
you do that? You
Could we
wouldn't.
ask something to the guys who are on the chat? Recently, I had a guy who sent me a friend request. He's a moderately well-known guitar guy in the guitar community, and straight away sent me, I accepted his request. He sent me a thing saying like my page. Do you guys think that's okay? So you send a request for someone, the first message you send them is a request to like their page. At the time, I never heard the guy, and I checked it out. It turns out he was kind of well known.
Well,
So what do we think on the chat?
Here's an interesting point of view, just to kind of start you thinking on that one. Is that if you ask somebody to like your page, how do you know whether that's a genuine like?
Well, exactly.
They've just
it
clicked the
doesn't
button. Now, we've asked people to like the Guitar Hour page, but the thing is, it's a little bit different because
up to date with it.
exactly, this is not.
And they're people that are already here.
Yeah. So that's going out to people who are friends of ours already. What we don't do is we don't send messages to people like cold calling, people we've never met before, saying, like the Guitar Hour page, you know, this is the Guitar Hour. So anyway, we'll see what people have to say
Have you
about
seen that Dave Chappelle skit about like if the internet was real, and he's in that sort of
I've seen
American
it's
mob?
brilliant, isn't it?
That's kind of what Facebook has turned into.
Yeah, I think Uncle Rob 199 is right. I mean, it's okay to invite all your friends to like your page. That's absolutely fine. If you're already friends with them, that's by the nature of being friends with them. That's okay. That's not cold calling.
But it's a weird situation for me because I messaged the guy kind of a bit concerned, thinking obviously this guy doesn't know what's going on, sort of doesn't know what he's doing. So I messaged him saying, hey, you know, it's kind of bad manners. It's bad manners to ask someone to like the page when you've sent me the friend request, and he messaged me back really rude about it, saying, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. This is 2015. This is the way we do it, and I find it works great for me. And I just thought, well, maybe I'm wrong then, but it seems pretty rude to me.
So
yeah, but
the quality of people that are going to end up liking your stuff or whatever are not actually people that like your stuff.
And you need it to be people who like stuff, because
doesn't
the
mean anything
Facebook
otherwise.
reach is so bad anyway.
Yeah, it
doesn't
You
mean
don't want
anything.
like 2,000 people on your page who don't have any desire to hear.
We'll never look at a video that you've
Yeah.
Because
done
it's,
again.
if you put it in context against something like a mailing list, if you play a gig and like old school kind of sign up, you know, do you want to sign up to the mailing list at your merch table kind of thing, that's people that actually want to know about what you're doing. So then, you know, you send it out, probably 90 to 100% of the people are going to actually go, oh yeah, cool, I've been to that show, I enjoyed it, what's going on? Whereas if you just spam 5,000 people on Facebook, for a start, none of those are. There's a very small percentage that are actually going to see it because of the way Facebook works. And of those, how many of them actually give a shit about what you're doing anyway?
So essentially, what we're saying is, don't be that guy, but do be a yes man.
Yeah.
That's the theme so far.
Well, Richard Lanier's just on here.
What's he saying? I can't see anything from him. Oh, there he is.
No, just say because I
All right.
liked his. Richard was saying that he's going to focus mainly on his artist page, and so I
Oh yes, I remember. Yeah.
So I liked his page, but that's because Richard's an awesome player, and I've seen him around on Facebook, and I know what he's about. No problem liking your page.
Yeah, I mean, if you've not seen Richard Langard play, well, you're missing out. Richard's an incredible player. Richard's time feel is just outrageous. So he's worth checking out. And scarily, he's not even a full-time guitar player these days, but he still sounds outrageous. And is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And knows more about gear than almost anybody I know as well, other than Dave Bronze.
Oh really? Do you think? Okay.
Well,
I know a lot about making gear.
Okay, well that
So I'm
counts.
too tight to buy any.
So I guess at this point we should bring our guest into play because Joel, actually, the three of us, Dave wasn't around at the time. I think your son was having a drum lesson, wasn't he?
Possibly.
You're off
Yeah.
being a good dad again.
He was bit off being a good dad. Dave has more responsibilities than the rest of us put together. But we were having a chat with Joel because Joel came around for a jam. Joel's in at the end. No, you're going into your third year.
Yeah.
Now, Leeds College of Music, for anybody who doesn't know, is a college, obviously, of music in Leeds in the UK, which is fairly prestigious. It's where also I graduated from in 2002. So quite a while ago. Joel is in his third year, or is about to go into his third year. When do you start? October?
No, next week.
Oh, next week. Okay. He's doing the straight ahead jazz course. There's a lot more courses there than there were when I was there, but he's doing the straight ahead jazz course. He's done 2 years of full time study there. It's £6,000 a year. For you? £9,000 a year now, which is relevant because we're going to have a chat about for the next sort of 15-20 minutes about musical education and Joel's experiences, my experiences, Dan's experiences, and Dave's experiences. But Joel, we're going to focus specifically on Leeds College of Music because Joel is there now. So Joel, tell us a little bit about the course, some of the content, and how you've been finding it for the first 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, overall, the course is a very good thing. As with anything, like the education system now, I think I have to do a lot of things you wouldn't have had to do. For
Quite
example,
possibly.
we have a module called Professional Studies,
Yeah,
which I have to do. I chose journalism, which is a cool thing. It's an important thing to learn about.
Well, I mean, I do journalism. As
yeah,
a living
exactly.
now, so,
Yeah.
Is that like
And,
music business, or is that something?
No,
slightly
I have to do.
Journalism.
You could pick music
Oh, you
business.
mean
No,
professional
within
studies?
within the.
You
Oh,
could
sorry.
pick music business, yeah, that's one of the things, and
That's good,
events management as well. But I mean, to be honest, I'd rather not be doing that. However, it's not a completely irrelevant skill.
So what's in your average for the guys who say, for instance, want to study jazz or want to go specifically either to LCM or to another jazz college? LCM has certainly expanded its horizons in terms of what the content of the course is. What's your average week like in terms of lessons? I don't mean everything, but
Okay,
what
yeah.
will you be studying?
So, the three main things based on jazz are composition, harmony in practice, and oral awareness.
and then you have an instrumental.
Yeah, instrumental one-to-one
Lesson,
lesson for
yeah.
now, and you also have an ensemble lesson.
Right.
It's there like the jazz
Is that
thing.
3 hours still? It used to be 3 hours long.
The ensemble's an hour and a half.
Oh, right, okay.
So basically, the composition, we had to do a big band arrangement,
Yeah,
which is
same
a
here.
pretty heavy assignment.
Yep.
Really useful as well. The harmony and practice is great. That brought a lot of ear training into play as well, with it being harmony and practice. We were talking a lot about this before as well.
So when you're talking about harmony and practice, you're talking about, obviously in the first year they teach you, no, I'm saying obviously, I don't know if this is the case, but you learnt, well, explain to me what harmony and practice is.
In first year we had a specific syllabus. It's 20 weeks a year I'm in, so each week was a different tune. Starting
Right,
off with a
okay.
very simple tune. I think it was something like "There Is No Greater Love" or "What Is This Thing Called Love?"
Okay.
Because obviously jazz
So what
is
you're doing,
about
major and minor 2-5-1s.
Yeah, that was the
Basic
first few,
harmony.
and then you end up looking at crazy tunes like Fluorescence, which is
Dave Holland
harnessing
you.
10-beat ragas and
Okay.
three bar measures and 4 bar.
And what sort of
second
things
bar.
you've been studying in your instrumental lessons, you've got a good friend of both of ours, Jamie Taylor.
Yeah,
JT as I know him.
JT is absolutely wicked. In my first year, he's very structured. Like, you need to get your time field together, you need to get your chord voicings together, you need to get your arpeggios together. So my first year was very structured. It was get this down.
And you came
leveling everyone out, sort of thing. It's
Yes,
trying to get
definitely,
everyone, so
yeah,
you must know
definitely,
this by the second year.
Yeah, there's a definitive. There wasn't when I was there particularly, but there's a definitive syllabus in terms of what you got to achieve at the end of the year. But Joel, you were very much a kind of. How would you describe yourself? Definitely you were into Matt Schofield, you were into blues stuff and rock stuff, basically.
Yeah.
You weren't a jazzer particularly
No.
before you went. And how have you found the whole experience in terms of music education? And this has turned into an interview. And would you recommend it?
I would 100% recommend it if you
100%.
thought it was right for you. I'm going to be honest, after first year I thought of not going back due to the whole money point of view. I was thinking...
I got kicked out when I was there for not paying my fees.
Yeah, I was thinking $9,000 a year I could go and study with so-and-so, I could... But the problem is...
Wayne Krantz in New York.
Yeah, but the problem is you can't get that $9,000.
No.
So you've got to do something else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
That's an excellent point, Smithers.
however, the
Explain
best
that to
thing...
me. I don't understand.
Student loan.
Student loan, do you know what I mean?
It went up. For anyone
Yeah.
that's not from the UK, it went up,
It was
3,000.
3,000,
It was
yeah.
around £3,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then it went, so if it's
Yeah.
for a 3-year course, it's about
Yeah.
£9,000 plus maintenance and stuff. But
Yeah.
now it's £9,000 for 1 year, which I imagine is nothing compared to American schools. But
Statistically, though, this is a really boring thing that I've got across the podcast.
It's on to statistics.
But statistically, your investment into education is actually the biggest return you'll ever get. If you think about it in terms of what you learn over your lifetime, like you spend 20 grand on your career now, but over your lifetime doing music, whatever you learn.
yeah, you spend
there's
20
more.
grand studying
So-
for 3 years, and then you work full time in that field for a year, and you make 20 grand
Yeah,
over the year. You've
But-
kind of
it's
And
a
then-
bigger return than pretty much anything, like even bigger than a house or anything like that.
So that's interesting. So, you did a year at Guitar Institute. How much
Yeah.
did that cost you?
I think it's about 3 grand because I paid it on the credit card.
Now,
what year
oh
was
man,
this?
doesn't that seem crazy that you could pay for your entire course on a credit card? I mean, imagine Joel going up and paying for the entire course on one.
27.
I know it was 3
Here's
years.
27
but-
grand.
Yeah,
Bit
but-
plastic.
How? So you felt that 3 grand was money well spent?
For
you?
me, it was, yeah.
Okay. What about you? Not 3 grand. Well, actually,
It was when I was at
mine was about 3 grand as well.
Mine was
But that
like
for 3 years.
3,100. I started in 2006, I think.
Man, you're all so young.
2006.
Me,
Yeah.
Must be about the same age.
That's about right. See, the university thing is a funny one because I'd spent so much time like getting like into music and harmony and stuff like early on. There's a lot of stuff that didn't really come into play. Like there was new stuff until like halfway through the second year. And I think you said something similar when you were studying. But saying that, it means that the situation you're in is that you're surrounded by musicians, and if you've done the student loan thing and that, you don't really have to work, and it's an excuse to just do whatever the fuck you want
That's
for
why,
like 3 years
I'm
straight.
That's why I'm still there.
Absolutely. I think it's totally worth it. I just think
It's really up to
our
you, though.
conversation earlier on. I think you really need to be careful about a few things when you, especially when you're doing a jazz degree. I think you need to not put the blinkers on too much. We have this phrase that Joel and I used to joke about this jazz Nazi phrase, and how that when you go to music college, it's like this is a horrible thing to say, and I don't quite mean it this way, and I can say it because I've been there. It's a jazz Nazi production line where you go in one end and you're really into like rock and you're really into kind of guitar,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you come out the other end and everything except jazz is to be despised and hated.
You go in with leather and come out with tweed.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, that's 2 crackers tonight. That's brilliant. The Bronze Age and leather and tweed. So it's just this interesting thing. I think you need to really think about, those 3 years were an amazing experience. Sorry, an amazing opportunity to practice more than you'll ever practice in your entire life. But you've got to be a little bit careful about thinking, what am I going to do when I finish? And am I making myself a employable musician, or am I becoming this thing that's possibly not that employable? some guys, I see quite a lot of guys that come out of those courses as jazz guitarists or whatever, and they are so blinkered into the jazz thing that they reject every other form of music, and then struggle to get to play to more than 3 people, you know, every night, and struggle to get gigs, and struggle, you know, end up teaching for a living basically just because, you know, it's not what they wanted to do, but because they didn't think about what they were going to do in the future. So it's not always the case, but it can be the case. I think you need to really think ahead, especially these days, planning for what you want to do in the future, and have a plan, not just go in with no plan at all. It's hard when you're when you're in your
Well, just
twenties.
spend university saying yes to as many things as possible.
Yeah,
playing
that's a
with
great
as many
plan.
people
And
as
be
possible.
a yes man again.
And I think the one thing that people overlook in terms of going to university is the people that you tend to meet at university are the people you form a career with.
Yeah,
Like,
like I've
often
been offered
like
gigs
that,
from
like-
people from uni like all the time.
And-
I mean, I can't do them because I'm already working, but it's like guys that were in my year or the year above, and it's kind of people that may have studied in Manchester, not necessarily from there, but after that they'll live in Manchester, and some of them end up. It's the ones that end up becoming like MDs and stuff that end up doing, you know, like big theatre productions with a budget that you want to sort of get in with. You know what I mean? You need to kind of be a bit. Don't wait until you walk out of there on the last day and go, "Where's the gigs then?" You know,
Yeah.
here I am.
Got a
world.
network. I mean, when one thing I do is I keep everyone's emails and stuff and keep in touch
Right.
and like start compiling, keeping everybody I meet, like, you know.
Yeah, one thing that I said to you a while back, I think we were walking back from the pub actually, is for if you're a guitar player on Facebook, there's not really that much sense in adding 5,000 guitar players, because they're in the same thing. If you're going to do anything, add 5,000 drummers and you might get a gig.
We've
That's
talked.
a
we-
phenomenal
yeah.
point. That might be the point of the show.
Yeah, we've talked about that, hasn't it?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like
That's just how you get
Everyone's just like drummers, get the drummers,
but
or
it-
play bass.
don't do
selling music, like instrumental music, to non-musicians has been a result for me in terms of the album.
That is
It's-
an outstanding result, and if I sell any of my music to non-musicians, I'll be astounded. I know exactly what you mean. It's the thing is, I'm not going to worry about that, but it is an interesting how, like, because your album is so compositionally listenable and also well, just excellently composed, that it appeals to more people than just guitar players. It's not just about the guitar playing.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas I have a feeling my album might just be about the guitar playing, but that's okay. That's fine. I don't mind.
Awesome, the album's.
I'm not worried
awesome.
about that. That's
Guys,
fine.
you're gonna love it.
But yeah, that's kind of interesting. So overall, your experience so far has been good.
Yeah,
You would recommend it, and
It
at
just
least
has to be
Cosmos in
right for
particular.
you. Like the thing I've realised in being hanging out with a lot of people there, like if you're not willing to put the work in, don't go, because there's
I
a
guess
lot
for
of
anything,
people
yeah.
who go and assume they're going to be there for 3 years and everything's handed to you on a plate. Like you need to be prepared to be in a practice room 5 or 6 hours a day and not just be there, do the work. Like
give you
And
the
I think-
information, you gotta go and
yeah, like it's no different to getting one-to-one lessons with a teacher in a sense, other
Yeah.
than the main advantage is meeting people and getting to
Absolutely.
play with great players. Like
Oh, and also players who are better than you.
like
which
the
is-
alumni, like I've started just trying to play with as much of the alumni as possible because they're a lot better than I am. And the best advice anyone ever gave me was you should be the worst person in the band, and that way you're constantly getting dragged up and
Yeah,
pulled
that's
up.
a really good Pat Metheny quote as well. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
it was something he says. But I had an interesting point. I forgot what it was. Brain failure. Oh well, never mind. If I remember it, I'll say what it was. But in general, your final year, so you've got to do at the end of this a full performance
Uh-huh.
in a gig scenario, I presume,
Yes.
and then a composition portfolio.
No.
You're not doing composition.
I have-
dissertation.
Know what? I have to do a final recital which has to it has to have one original tune, so I have to compose a tune for that.
Okay.
I also have to do an ensemble recital.
Oh, right, because yours is jazz performance.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the composition module's finished. I've done that now. Finished that in second year.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, it's changed quite a lot since I was there. Yeah. So yes, this was the other thing I was going to say. I've just remembered what my point was. The other thing to remember about music education, especially if you're going to do a degree, is that I remember when I did it, I expected that by the end of my third year, I'd be a fully formed. Like I'm doing this so that by the end of the third year, that'll be me. That'll be the player I'm going to be for the rest of my life, and I'll go over to New York and I'll hit the jazz scene and that'll be it. I'll be done. You know, I'll have practiced so much that that'll be the thing that I do. And you've got to be a little bit realistic about it. That's not what's going to happen. After 3 years, you won't be a fully formed player. It's another, lifetime. It's another 10, 15 years before you probably feel comfortable with jazz. If you're doing a jazz degree, it's a really hard thing to do. So go into it with like really open ears and open, mind, and then just don't set too much pressure on yourself. Like you do loads.
Yeah.
Like you use all the facilities and stuff, and that's what you want to do. But don't set. My advice would be don't pressure yourself too much, because you're not supposed to be a fully formed musician by the end of those 3 years. That's not the point of it.
Like being genuinely honest now, I'm still kind of. I know I'm not going to be, but I still.
That's in your mind.
Somewhere in my brain, I'm thinking, but maybe.
I was the same.
Just maybe. Do you know
I was
what I mean?
exactly the same.
But I think if you don't have that, you might just stop.
I agree.
So,
I
but
think
you've
it
got to
needs
be
to be
realistic,
there,
as you said. You've got to have that spark of something like maybe, just maybe, but you've got to be
You've got to
realistic.
have the hope.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
dreams. Because
It's hard to explain, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's
like,
got to be tempered a little bit by a little bit of
Yeah.
kind of common sense and sensibleness,
Yeah.
because you don't want to come out after 3 years totally disappointed that you aren't the next Kurt Rosenwinkel.
And blame the university.
Trying to blame the
that
university.
you're not famous.
And become, start off your career with bitterness. It needs to be this tempered expectation, but still have the dream, basically. It doesn't have to happen after 3 years. Have a great time, enjoy yourself, do tons of practice, use the facilities. But
try and be as well-rounded as possible as well. Like, obviously there's the style that is most favourable to you, but like you were saying about, you sort of, at the time you're just like, nope, jazz, that's it, nothing else.
I think it's hard to do that though, like being in that position now. For example, like I'll do the occasional function gig, but someone sends me a list of like 40 tunes and I'm just like,
this
that's
is
my
the
week.
focus for you.
That's my week's practice gone, sorry I can't do that. Like, so I do get the thing of being around a player, but while I've paid the money, I kind of want to work on the jazz.
Completely get that.
And when
completely.
I've finished, I'll then seek the money. Do you know what I mean?
Looking back from being at the institute, I think I practiced too much and
Ooh.
should have taken more gigs.
All right.
Because I was living in London and I
That's
was
interesting.
so locked into practicing that I didn't actually do and meeting any of the people.
That's very interesting.
And interestingly for me is when I left the institute, I had so many different styles, because down there you do like country and jazz and the whole thing. That I had to almost choose what to forget so I could remember how to play like me again.
So,
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little bit annoying, but not really annoying. I'm going to say to you, do you do any gigs at the moment?
Yes.
The finger's pointing.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what gigs do you do?
Just like I've been given a monthly gig in a bar, so that's just like my gig. I can take whoever I want down.
So I think, like Dave was saying, that's the key to this, I think, as well. There's sort of two aspects to it, because if you're doing that, then you're playing with people and you get to know people.
Yeah.
That's the best way to treat it. I
The
think.
thing for
Because
me
then
is
afterwards,
like,
that's what you'll still do.
yeah, with the jazz scene in Leeds, there's like a few gigs a week. But I mean, they're going to.
Yeah.
But I've just been Facebook messaging people. And everyone wants to play. So even if you're not playing with people on a gig, you don't need a gig to play with people. Like,
Right.
I'm lucky enough to have access to practice rooms and band rooms with nice
Yeah, of
pianos
course.
and stuff. So even just doing that, like, do you wanna play?
Yeah.
That's like, if you don't have a gig, do that.
Yeah, just not locking yourself away on your own.
Yeah,
and
no, I
kind of-
never do that. I try and
No.
I play with a band at least 2 or 3 times a
So I
week.
guess sometimes you have to, but
Yeah, sometimes that just
you know,
happens.
if you're playing with other people, is kind of the key.
yeah,
I guess. So.
yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, cool.
I would say
Oh yeah.
be careful about saying no to gigs if it's the same guy multiple times, because it might get to the point where
They just don't
you
know.
wait
You're
for these
gonna
gigs
lose
and
the
they're just,
gig,
they're just
yeah,
not
yeah.
going to ask you again.
Yeah, I'm very
It's
aware
like-
of losing the gig. Yeah.
Don't ask him again. He only plays jazz. Or don't ask him again because he does this. Or like
He
when I
hates
was,
everything that's
I
not
didn't get
jazz.
gigs for ages because they thought I was on shit, even though I wasn't. Because that's the last thing people see you doing. They go, "Oh, I was here. Oh no, he's probably on shit for what asking." And then when I started working, people were offering me gigs that I can't do then because you know what I mean. When I didn't have the gigs and I needed
It's a
them.
good position to be in there.
Yeah, I mean the guys who I know who are doing best within the traditional kind of guitarist scene route in terms of working guitarists are the guys who have this very wide palette of skills, and a guy like Jake, for instance, who can do the Tommy show. Is it Tommy he's doing? No.
Yeah.
We're going to get Jake on the show at some point, by the way. I hope we are, anyway.
I'm going to go see that show at some point.
So, but essentially, the guys who I know who are doing the best in terms of their career are the guys who are very wide. They're not blinkered in a way. Because if you think about it, again, this is something that we were talking about earlier on. If you want to be a really, really successful jazz musician, especially a guitar player these days, you've got to be Kurt Rosenwinkel or Adam Rogers, or if you want to be a sax player, you've got to be Chris Potter. Or somewhere up in that range, and that's something you have to be very honest with yourself about. Is that an achievable and approachable thing for me, or is it better for me to kind of learn jazz and enjoy it, but focus on my employability? That it's a very interesting kind of dichotomy that you've got to
it depends.
solve.
If you can handle doing like a job that you don't like, to still maintain some kind of artistry and playing and stuff, that's cool. But
which I think is what 90% of the population, if not more, have to deal with.
It's tough because when you get this sort of a situation where, do you want this gig? It's 150, 200 quid for just playing guitar for 2 hours. 200 quid. How long would it take to do that if you worked in an office or something? Not that there's anything wrong with working in an office.
No.
But in comparison, that's what 2, 3, 4 days maybe. Like start doing something that you might not necessarily like to do, and there can be there's merit to be taken from anything. You know what I mean? If you're playing like
if you do a good
Motown
job,
stuff, just concentrate on just really.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
That's the beautiful thing about this, and this is something I've learned in the past 5 or 6 years that I just wasn't aware of. Doing a good job, like these guys who get up on stage and they just do that. Doing a good job of that is way more difficult than if your job is to go.
Yeah.
And do a great job of that every night and really enjoy it and look like you're enjoying it. And also, if say for instance you're like a Motown player, like you said, to do it authentically and do it well, there's a lot more involved with that than you would think.
Yeah.
Like your job, man, that's not easy at all. But a lot of guys would come out of a musical education environment and dismiss that because
I can't stand people that go, fuck that man, that's beneath me.
I'm not doing
whatever.
that
It's not,
because I'm this thing, so I'm not going to do that.
I'm not doing that because all the
without
lines are natural.
appreciating how difficult it is.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult. I'm trying to think of some more examples. Like the guys who, like the gospel guys, for instance. Even if they, I'm not talking about just the chopsy gospel playing, but like the stuff where they're just holding it down. They're just, holding it down a groove for a preacher or something.
Oh, I did a gig
It's
at
incredibly difficult to do
uni
well.
for somebody that was like, I was essentially pretending to be a sample, and it was
There you
like
go,
it was like some Macy Gray tune.
That's
I
what
think.
Guthrie did for a while, I think.
Well, yeah, I'll get to. I know what that is. I'll get to that in a minute.
They've been playing word bingo on there, and
It's Guthrie one.
Guthrie was one
They've
of
been
the very
playing
early
word
ones.
bingo.
It's really early in the feed. It's about an hour ago. So whoever put Guthrie just won the prize.
What is the prize?
Don't know.
It's the
Getting mentioned.
Yeah, so, and it was essentially like playing like a little, just like a little pentatonic phrase with a little, because I think it was on a synth originally. It was like like that, and so I was going with a bar and trying to do that in time with the same kind of attack and tone and the same, like one time after another, and making it sort of groove is fucking difficult. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, I mean it's
And the
interesting.
Guthrie thing, I think that was about something about.
He was supposed to
using
replace a
samples,
sample,
yeah,
but they weren't
for
allowed to
legal
use
reasons.
the sample. So,
So
he
it's
had
like
to,
you have to do a James Brown riff, and to get the right tone, to get the right
You have to
feel, to make
replicate
it
it.
sound the same.
yeah.
You need to know what you're on about to do that.
I mean, it's like anything else. Once I'd done my jazz degree, and I played a big fat jazz guitar, which by the way I still love. And this guitar is absolutely beautiful. This is one of the lawsuit Ibanez. It's 73.
73 tall,
73.
yeah.
Gorgeous guitar. For me to then go back and play stuff I'd played 4 years earlier, like rock stuff, Steve Vai stuff, was almost impossible because all of my feel for that stuff had gone. And the weird thing is, in your mind, it's very easy to put a hierarchy on, this is more important and more musically valid than that. But the thing that you forget is that the amount of skill that's involved in putting together a great rock solo. Look at someone like Marco Sfoli, or Andy Timmons again. It's an incredibly high level of skill. Forget the technique, but just the vocal nature of the things that they play, the intonation.
We saw him play at Nam, and he's playing to a backing track, and it was like the most
wow.
ridiculous
Wow.
shit
That's
you've ever
right.
heard.
It
and
was
that's just
oh yeah,
to
you
a
were there.
track.
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
That was incredible.
I think it's so important, no matter where you are in your education, and certainly once you've graduated, to be so open-minded about, okay, this is not necessarily more musically valid than that, and just because I've done a jazz degree, and this is something that took me quite a while to get over. It was listening to Greg Howe again and kind of getting into, because of a student of mine, a guy from Chicago, really excellent guy, a guy called Eric, who gave me a load of Greg Howe. And a few years earlier, I'd have listened to it and gone, no, man, that guy can't swing, or that guy, the harmony's too simple, or man, listen to the drummer's not swinging, this isn't hip, whatever. You have to get over you have to really get over yourself. It's not a good way to be.
It's
And
killing.
yeah, or as they say these days, this really amuses me, the way this has been stolen from the metal scene. Oh man, that guy's so heavy.
Yeah.
It's just, what does that mean? It's these kind of, the vernacular, if you like. And I get what it means, but it's just interesting listening to these words being used. But I think you've got to be really open to all of these things, and the more open you are to everything, and the less blinkered you are, and the more wide your viewpoint, the more comfortable you are as a musician, and the better off you are as a musician for it. So that would be, as far as education goes, that would be my piece of advice. Keep your blinkers off, or don't put them on in the first place. Don't become a jazz Nazi, because it's not a great place to be as far as being a musician, and you are cutting off a whole world of things that, let's take it from a guitar-centric perspective, that the guitar can do, that you just, you're kind of dismissing.
Well, I mean, I almost begrudge bringing them up, but like you see some of the Guthrie videos.
Oh, word bingo.
Yeah, bingo, big time. Somebody do a shot. It is
Should have brought the Palinka up.
a lot of the reason that people like him is because they go, oh, he can play anything, and it's not necessarily that. He'd be the first to say if people hear him sort of play country stuff. If he was around like real country guitar players, he'd probably be like, oh, I'm just sort of faking it, or any kind of style. You go, oh, it's this or it's that, or it's like some kind of old Elvis stuff. He knows about that. And it's kind of, he's been very open to every possible sort of style, really, even if it's just like a few of the cliches. And it's just like little things like, it can't hurt to have a few of these things down. Actually, the cruise ship audition, there was two parts to it. One was the reading part, and the second part was just doing little 30-second snippets. And what they asked for was, they had a list of things, and it was things like a Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of shuffle thing, and then like some Motown stuff, and then a bit of a funk thing.
I would struggle with that gig.
And it's like, you just have to do 30-second snippets of any bit of stylistic shit that you've got. Like, right, what have you got? And it might be like a bit of like,
I'd be like,
do you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
will that get me the gig?
But like, you never know when that kind of like
Next.
That I can do. Oh no, I can't do that.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you never know when that kind of shit's gonna come in useful. And like, there's been many times. I sound like I can suck myself off it, but there's been times where I've been playing in here with you, and I've like played something. You're like, oh shit, I didn't know you could play like that.
Yeah.
And it's just some little gimmick from it.
Well, there was one earlier on.
Like, what's that one?
That picking thing.
Oh right, yeah. It's like.
Yeah,
And it's good to have a lot of those things at your
Absolutely.
sleeve. Like, obviously, play what you want to play and play how you like to play. But it's good if somebody sort of throws up something that's like, oh, we're going to play like a little nod to this kind of style, and you go, oh, okay, I've got this.
There's that great Guthrie quote on cliches, isn't it, where he goes, oh, I'm going to talk about cliches. Someone asks a question, it's like 2 minute long. Just find it if you can. But anyway, he basically says a cliche got to be a cliche by being very good.
Yeah.
Who wants to nick something and play it and make it a cliche
first.
unless it's good?
Like the best cliche ever.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want that in their playing?
I'm not sure that's the last chord, is it?
Yeah, it is. Oh, well, you could do all sorts of chords, but I chose this one.
The guitar teacher used to do that.
Yeah, there you go. There's all sorts of those things. Anyway, as usual, we're running out of time. It's an hour and a half.
On that note,
So,
Bye.
as usual, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all our new followers as well. The usual little bits of tying up loose ends. When are you around next, Dave? Do we know? Are we going to do one next
Here
week?
next Wednesday, and then I'm on tour.
Right, so we're going to do one next Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah, should be cool.
So another guitar hour next Wednesday. If you click the follow button underneath again and click on the send notifications thing, you'll be able to get an email every time we go live. If you like the stream and want to support us, there's a donate button underneath. Feel free to donate as little or as much as you like. That money is not, I say this every time, but it's important, that money is not for us to make profits. That money is for putting back into the guitar hour, either for getting guests in or for getting more better picture quality for you. We want to up our frame rate by getting a capture card that's going to allow us to have a better picture and higher frame rate. And feel free, guys, the chat continues after this, and you can chat on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/The Guitar Hour.
Yeah.
And also, this will be going up on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/TQ105, TQ105. So you can check out all the previous Guitar Hour streams either there or on Twitch. They're also available on my channel on Twitch if you go to past broadcasts. Okay, so that's that. That's the Guitar Hour for this particular session. We'll be back next week. Thank you, Joel, for joining us.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having
Dan.
me.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave, for manning the chat as usual. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. And Richard, may I ask you to do the show on Thursday? Yes, that's an excellent point. Yes, Richard, we will do a show on the Thursday that you're here, for definite. We'll do a guitar hour with Mr. Laneguard. He can show you his scary tapping chops.
Is it going to bring the? Is it bringing the erotic?
Which guitar?
I'll ask him. I don't know.
Is he bringing his erotic? Sounds
all right.
worrying.
Sounds like the story familiar.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you soon. Cheers.